Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the English podcast for listening and speaking. I'm Brian, and I am so excited to be here with all of you today.
And I'm Emily. It's great to be back, Brian. And a huge hello to everyone tuning in from wherever you are in the world. We're thrilled to have you join us for another episode designed to help you boost your English vocabulary and confidence.
Absolutely, Emily. And today, we're diving into a topic that touches everyone's lives, no matter where you are or what you do: mastering your money. Specifically, we're going to explore practical budgeting tips for families.
That's right. Money management can feel a bit overwhelming at times, especially when you're thinking about a whole family's finances. But it's such an essential skill. And the good news is, learning the right vocabulary and strategies can make it a lot less daunting and a lot more empowering.
Exactly. We're not just going to talk about numbers. We're going to share real-life examples, personal stories, and, of course, some fantastic English vocabulary and expressions that will help you discuss financial topics with ease and confidence.
Whether you're a parent, planning to start a family, or just looking for better ways to manage your personal finances, you're in the right place. We'll break down some key terms, explore common scenarios, and give you practical takeaways that you can apply right away.
So, get ready to open your minds and your notebooks, because we're about to make mastering your money and your English a whole lot clearer and more fun. Let's get started.
All right, Brian, since we're diving into mastering money, I think the absolute best place to start is with the word that's central to our whole discussion today: budget. What exactly do we mean by that?
That's a perfect starting point, Emily. The word budget is really interesting because it can be used in two main ways, as both a noun and a verb. So, let's break it down. As a noun, a budget is basically a spending plan.
A spending plan. I like that. So it's a detailed list or outline of how much money you expect to earn and how you plan to spend or save that money over a specific period, usually a month. It's like a map for your money, right?
Exactly. It's your financial roadmap. For example, a family might have a monthly budget that lists their income and then categories for expenses like rent, groceries, transportation, and entertainment. Having a budget helps you see where your money is going.
And it's not just for families or individuals. Businesses have budgets. Governments have budgets. Even big events like the Olympics have a massive budget for everything from construction to security. It's all about planning financial resources.
That's a great point, Emily. It's a universal concept. But then there's the verb form, to budget. This is the action, the active process of creating and sticking to that spending plan.
So, if the noun budget is the map, then to budget is the act of actually navigating with that map. It's the ongoing process of managing your money, making sure your spending aligns with your plan, and making adjustments when needed.
Precisely. For instance, you might hear someone say, "I need to budget carefully this month because I have some big expenses coming up." That means they need to sit down, look at their income, and plan out their spending to make sure they don't overspend.
Or a family might decide to budget for a vacation next year, meaning they'll start setting aside money regularly and planning how much they can spend on flights, accommodation, and activities. It's about being proactive.
Absolutely. It's about being intentional with your money rather than just letting it disappear without knowing where it went. For me, budgeting means regularly checking my bank statements and comparing them to my spending plan to make sure I'm still on track.
And that's really where the power of budgeting comes in. It helps you gain control. So, to recap for our listeners, a budget as a noun is the actual financial plan, and to budget as a verb is the active process of planning and controlling your spending.
You've got it. And we're going to dive into how to effectively budget a bit later. But understanding these foundational terms is crucial for anyone looking to master their money. It's all about clarity.
Agreed. And I think the key takeaway here is that budgeting isn't about restriction. It's about freedom. It's about making your money work for you and not the other way around. It really empowers you.
You know, Emily, it's one thing to define what a budget is, but it's another to actually live it and see its impact. I have to admit, there was a time in my life when my spending felt completely out of control.
Oh, tell me more, Brian. I think many of our listeners can probably relate to that feeling. It's easy for things to spiral if you're not paying attention.
Absolutely. I remember a few years ago, before I really started budgeting consistently, I would just swipe my card without much thought. Every month, I'd get to the end, look at my bank balance, and wonder where all my money had gone. I wasn't buying anything particularly extravagant, but it was just small, everyday purchases adding up. A coffee here, lunch out there, online subscriptions I barely used.
Yes.
It got to a point where I felt really stressed about money, even though my household income was stable. I just couldn't seem to hold on to my money, and it felt truly out of control. That's when I decided enough was enough. I sat down and made my first proper budget, tracking every single dollar.
That's a classic scenario, Brian. It's those little leaks that sink the ship, isn't it? So, what happened once you started budgeting? Did it immediately bring things back into line?
It wasn't instant magic, but it definitely started the process. The first month was eye-opening. I saw exactly where my money was going, and it was a shock. But seeing it all laid out like that gave me the power to make changes. I cut back on things I didn't truly need, like those extra subscriptions, and I started packing my lunch. It took discipline, but within a few months, I felt so much more in control of my finances. It was a huge relief.
That's a powerful story, Brian, and it really highlights the out-of-control feeling that budgeting helps to fix. My experience was a bit different, but also centered around understanding where money comes from and goes. I've always been pretty good at tracking my personal spending, but I remember a time when my entire family's household income was really put to the test.
Yes.
It was during a period of an economic downturn a few years back. My partner's work hours were reduced, and suddenly our combined household income dropped significantly. It wasn't about my personal spending being out of control, but rather the external economic factors impacting our financial stability. It was a really challenging time for many families, including ours.
That's a very different kind of pressure. How did your family manage that? It must have been incredibly stressful to see your household income affected by an economic downturn.
It was. We had to be incredibly diligent with our budget. We already had one, but we had to tighten it considerably. We looked at every single expenditure and asked ourselves, is this absolutely necessary? We had to pause some long-term savings goals and focus purely on essential living costs. It taught us the importance of having an emergency fund and truly understanding the difference between wants and needs.
Yes.
The good news is that we got through it, and when the economic boom eventually returned, we were in a much stronger position because we had learned to be so disciplined. It really showed us how crucial it is to have a clear picture of your household income and to budget proactively, especially when facing external challenges like an economic downturn.
Those are both such valuable lessons, Emily. Your story really emphasizes that budgeting isn't just for when things feel out of control individually, but also when external forces like an economic downturn affect your household income. It's about resilience and adaptability.
Exactly. Whether your spending is out of control because of personal habits or your household income is affected by an economic downturn, budgeting provides that framework to regain control and make informed decisions. It gives you peace of mind.
That's so true, Emily. Budgeting isn't just a financial tool, it's a mental and emotional one too. It really does give you peace of mind. And speaking of foundational terms, you just mentioned household income again, and it's such a core concept when we talk about family budgeting.
It absolutely is, Brian. We touched on it a little, but let's really nail down what household income means for our listeners. It's not just your personal salary, is it?
Exactly. When we talk about household income, we're referring to the combined total of all the money earned by every person living together in a single household. So, if you live with your partner and you both work, your household income would be the sum of both your salaries plus any other income coming into the house.
Right? It could also include things like passive income from investments, Social Security benefits, or even rental income if you have a property. The key is that it's the total financial inflow for the entire household. Understanding this figure is the very first step in creating any effective family budget because it tells you how much money you have to work with.
Absolutely. You can't budget what you don't know you have. And on the topic of income, especially for families, there's another word that often comes up: allowance. Emily, did you ever get an allowance as a kid? Oh, I certainly did, Brian, and it was a hotly debated topic in my household. My parents believed in tying my allowance to chores. So, if I wanted that glorious $5 a week, I had to earn it by doing dishes, tidying my room, and helping with laundry.
Wow!
Smart parents. Mine were similar. I remember having to mow the lawn for my allowance. It taught me the value of work and managing my own money, even if it was just enough for a comic book and some candy. So, an allowance is essentially money given regularly, often to children, right?
Precisely. It's a regular payment for a specific purpose, often for personal spending or minor expenses. But it's not just for kids. Sometimes spouses might give each other a personal allowance for discretionary spending. Or a company might give employees a travel allowance or a food allowance when they're on a business trip. It's all about a set amount of money given for a specific, ongoing purpose.
That's a great point about the broader use of the word. It's really about a predetermined amount of money set aside for something. Now, shifting gears a little, you mentioned economic downturn earlier in your story, Emily, about how it affected your household income. Could you elaborate a bit more on what an economic downturn means, and also its opposite, an economic boom?
Of course! An economic downturn is essentially a period when the economy is slowing down or shrinking. Think of it as the opposite of growth. During an economic downturn, you might see businesses struggling, unemployment rates going up, and people's income potentially decreasing, just like my family experienced with reduced work hours. It's a challenging time financially for many.
So, slower business, fewer jobs, less money generally circulating. And the economic boom is the sunny side of that coin?
Exactly. An economic boom is a period of rapid economic growth and prosperity. Businesses are thriving, jobs are plentiful, wages might be increasing, and people generally have more money to spend. It's when everything feels like it's going well financially. You often hear about high consumer confidence during an economic boom.
It's like the economy is flourishing. And understanding these terms is really important for families because an economic downturn can quickly affect your household income and force you to adjust your budget, whereas an economic boom might present opportunities for saving or investment.
Absolutely. Knowing where the economy stands helps you make more informed budgeting and financial planning decisions. For instance, during an economic downturn, you'd probably be more conservative with your spending and focus on essentials. During an economic boom, you might feel more comfortable allocating money towards long-term goals or even some luxuries.
Allocate. Great segue. This is such a crucial verb in budgeting. To allocate means to distribute or assign something for a particular purpose. So, when we talk about budgeting, it means deciding where your money is going to go.
Yes, it's the act of consciously deciding how to use your funds. If you have, say, a family household income of $5,000 a month, you need to allocate that money. You don't just hope it goes to the right places, you direct it.
That's where the planning comes in. Let's do a quick fun exercise. Emily, if you had a sudden, unexpected extra $1,000 in your household income this month, how would you allocate it? No budgeting rules apply here, just your immediate thoughts.
Oh, that's a fun one. Okay, well, realistically, I'd probably allocate a good chunk to our emergency fund. Always be prepared. But if I'm being a bit more playful, I might allocate some towards a weekend getaway for the family, maybe a short trip to the coast, and allocate a smaller portion to a new board game for our collection. How about you, Brian? How would you allocate it?
That sounds lovely. I think I'd allocate a large portion to finally getting those new tires for my car that I've been putting off. Safety first. And then, with whatever is left, I'd allocate it to trying out that new fancy restaurant everyone's been talking about. A little treat for myself.
See? Even in a hypothetical scenario, we're making conscious choices about where our money goes. That's the essence of allocating. It gives you control. And speaking of where money goes, that brings us neatly to expenditures. Brian, what exactly are expenditures?
Expenditures are simply the things or categories on which money is spent. They're your outgoing payments, the costs you incur. Every single thing you spend money on, from your rent to that morning coffee, is an expenditure.
Right. For a family, common expenditures might include rent or mortgage payments, groceries, utility bills like electricity and water, transportation costs, whether it's gas for the car or public transport fares. Then there's healthcare, education expenses if you have kids, and, of course, entertainment and dining out.
Exactly. And it's helpful to think of expenditures in two main categories: fixed costs and variable costs. Fixed costs are those expenditures that generally stay the same every month and are usually necessary. Think rent, a car payment, or your internet bill. They don't change much, if at all.
And then, variable costs are the expenditures that can change from month to month, and you often have more control over them. Groceries are a great example. You have to buy food, but you can choose to buy more expensive items or cheaper ones, or eat out less to reduce that expenditure.
Or entertainment, going to the movies or buying new clothes. These are all variable expenditures because you can adjust how much you spend on them, or even cut them out entirely if needed. Identifying these two types of expenditures is key to effective budgeting because it shows you where you have flexibility.
Precisely. When you're looking to save money, it's usually those variable expenditures that you target first. You can't easily reduce your rent, but you can definitely pack your lunch instead of buying it. So, to recap this segment, we've talked about household income, allowance, the difference between an economic downturn and an economic boom, how to allocate your money, and what expenditures are, including the difference between fixed and variable costs.
That's a solid foundation for our listeners to build upon. Understanding these terms is the first step in mastering your money.
That's an excellent recap, Brian. Understanding these foundational terms is crucial, as you said. But budgeting isn't just about the nouns and verbs. It's also about the feelings and situations that come with managing money.
Absolutely, Emily. And English is full of fantastic expressions that capture those feelings and situations perfectly. We've got a few key phrases we want to highlight today that you'll hear often when people talk about finances, or just life in general, but they're especially useful in a budgeting context.
Let's dive right in. The first one we want to talk about is skyrocket. Brian, has anything in your life recently skyrocketed? And I'm not just talking about your enthusiasm for this podcast.
Oh, Emily, you know it. My utility bills, specifically heating, have absolutely skyrocketed this winter. It feels like every time I open that envelope, the numbers are just going up, and away. It's definitely made me look at our energy expenditures very closely.
Tell me about it. My grocery bill has felt like it's skyrocketing lately, too. I go into the supermarket with my list, thinking I know what I'll spend, and then I get to the checkout, and the total just seems to skyrocket beyond what I expected. It makes me wonder if I need to reevaluate my allowance for gourmet cheese.
Ha! The gourmet cheese expenditure is a real budget buster for many, I imagine. But seriously, skyrocket, perfectly describes something that increases rapidly and dramatically, often unexpectedly. It's a very vivid image, like a rocket shooting into the sky. It can be prices, costs, or even your workload or responsibilities.
Exactly. It paints a clear picture. So when you hear someone say, "The cost of living has skyrocketed," you immediately understand that prices have gone up very quickly and significantly. It's not just a small increase, it's a huge jump.
And sometimes when things skyrocket, whether it's costs or just general spending, it can start to feel a bit out of control. That's our next phrase. Emily, have you ever felt like your spending was out of control?
Oh, absolutely, Brian. More times than I care to admit, especially during festive seasons or when I'm under stress. I remember one Christmas when I just kept buying gifts, thinking, just one more little thing. And before I knew it, my credit card bill was completely out of control. It was a real wake-up call that holiday season.
I know that feeling. For me, it was when I started working from home and my coffee shop habit went totally out of control. Instead of one coffee a day, it became 2, sometimes 3, because it was so easy to just pop out. Suddenly, that small daily expenditure was adding up to a significant chunk of my discretionary income, and I realized my spending was out of control in that area.
It's so easy for things to spiral, isn't it? Out of control really means that something is excessive, unmanaged, or beyond what you can handle. It implies a lack of regulation or restraint. When your spending is out of control, it means you're not managing it effectively, and it's likely leading to financial stress.
And that's often when people realize they need a budget. When their spending has skyrocketed and feels completely out of control. It's a common trigger for wanting to regain that sense of stability.
Exactly. And that brings us perfectly to our next phrase. If you're feeling that way, if your finances feel a bit out of control, or some of your costs have skyrocketed, then we want to tell you, you've come to the right place.
That's right. You've come to the right place is a wonderfully reassuring phrase. It means that the person or place you found is exactly what you need to solve your problem or provide the information you're looking for. We're confident that the advice and vocabulary we're sharing will truly help you master your money.
We hope so. When we say you've come to the right place, we're saying that we believe we have the answers, the tips, and the guidance you need to get your budgeting on track. It's a way of expressing confidence in our ability to help you.
So, if you're feeling overwhelmed by your expenditures, or if your spending habits seem out of control, or if you're just looking for practical tips to make your household income work harder for you, then yes, you've come to the right place with the English podcast for listening and speaking.
We've been through these financial ups and downs ourselves, and we've learned a lot along the way. Our goal is to make learning about budgeting, and the English vocabulary that goes with it, as practical and painless as possible for you.
So, to recap these useful phrases, skyrocket for rapid increases, out of control for unmanaged or excessive situations, and you've come to the right place for finding the help you need. These are all phrases you'll hear in many contexts, but they fit perfectly into our discussion on mastering your money.
Yes.
Well, Emily, we've talked about what happens when things skyrocket and get out of control, and we've confidently declared that you've come to the right place for solutions. Now it's time to deliver on that promise. Let's get into the practical, step-by-step advice for families who want to master their money through budgeting.
Absolutely, Brian. It can feel daunting at first, but breaking it down into manageable steps makes it much less intimidating. So, where do we begin when a family decides they want to get a handle on their finances?
The very first step, and arguably the most crucial, is identifying your cash flow. Think of cash flow as the money flowing into your household versus the money flowing out. It's like the financial heartbeat of your family. You need to know exactly how much money is coming in from all sources: salaries, freelance work, child support, investments, anything. And then how much is going out.
That's right. So, practically speaking, You need to add up all your household income for the month. Be thorough here. If you have multiple income streams, list them all. This gives you a clear picture of what you have to work with.
And on the flip side, you need to track where every penny is going. This brings us to our second step, reviewing past expenditures. This isn't always fun, but it's incredibly insightful. Go through your bank statements, credit card statements, and even old receipts for the last month or two.
Yes, it's like being a financial detective. You're looking for patterns. Where is your money actually going? You might be surprised. Many people discover they're spending a lot more on things like dining out or impulse purchases than they realized. This step is about honest self-assessment, not judgment.
Exactly. And once you've done that, the third step is to differentiate between fixed and variable costs. This is a game changer for budgeting. Fixed costs are those expenses that generally stay the same every month and are often harder to change immediately. Think of your rent or mortgage payment, car loan payments, insurance premiums, or even subscriptions like Netflix. These are often non-negotiable in the short term.
And then you have variable costs, which are expenses that fluctuate each month and are much easier to adjust. This includes things like groceries, utilities, which, as you mentioned earlier, can sometimes skyrocket, entertainment, clothing, and dining out. These are the areas where you have the most control and the most opportunity to make changes.
So, once you've identified them, the practical tip here is to focus your efforts on managing those variable costs. You can't suddenly reduce your rent, but you can choose to eat out less, plan your grocery shopping more efficiently, or find cheaper entertainment options. This is where you can really start to see the impact of your budgeting efforts.
It's all about making conscious choices. For example, instead of grabbing coffee every day, maybe you make it at home a few times a week. Or instead of 3 streaming subscriptions, perhaps you pick 1 or 2 that you use the most. Small changes to variable costs can add up significantly over a month or a year.
Definitely. And that leads us to our fourth critical step, minimizing credit card usage. Credit cards can be incredibly convenient, but they can also be a slippery slope if not managed carefully. The interest rates can be very high, and carrying a balance means you're paying extra for things you've already bought.
This is where spending can really get out of control. If you're relying on credit cards to cover everyday expenditures that exceed your household income, you're building up debt, not wealth. Our advice here is to prioritize paying off any high-interest credit card debt first. It's like a leaky bucket. You need to plug that hole before you can fill it up.
A great analogy, Emily. Once you're out of debt, try to use cash or a debit card for your everyday spending. This makes you much more aware of how much money you have and how much you're spending, because you can literally see the cash leaving your wallet or the funds diminishing in your bank account.
It's a powerful psychological tool. When you hand over physical cash, you feel the transaction more. If you do use credit cards, make sure you pay the full balance every single month. That way, you avoid interest charges and can still benefit from any rewards points, but without falling into the debt trap.
These steps really lay the foundation for a solid budget. Identify your cash flow, review where your money has been going, understand the difference between fixed and variable costs, and be mindful of your credit card use. It might seem like a lot of work initially, but once you get into the habit, it becomes much easier and empowering.
And remember, budgeting isn't about deprivation. It's about making your money work for you, so you can allocate it towards what truly matters to your family. It's about gaining control and reducing stress, allowing you to achieve your financial goals, whether that's saving for a house, a vacation, or just building a comfortable emergency fund.
Precisely. And don't be discouraged if you don't get it perfect the first month. Budgeting is an ongoing process, and it takes practice to find what works best for your family. The key is to start, be consistent, and adjust as your life changes.
Agree.
What an insightful journey we've been on today, Emily. We've gone from defining key financial terms to giving really practical steps for families to take control of their money.
Absolutely, Brian. And now, we want to hear from all of you, our amazing listeners. What are your budgeting experiences? Do you have any clever financial tips that have worked for your family? Or perhaps a funny childhood story about your allowance? We love getting your feedback and hearing how these topics resonate with your lives.
Yes, please share your thoughts on our social media channels or send us an email. Your stories not only inspire us, but also help other learners see how these concepts apply in real life. It's all about building a community of English speakers who are confident and curious.
Before we sign off, let's do a quick recap of some of the fantastic vocabulary and concepts we covered today. We started with budget and budgeting. Remember, a budget is your spending plan, and to budget is the act of putting that plan into action. It's both a noun and a verb.
Then we talked about household income, which is the combined earnings of everyone living in your home. And we explored allowances, whether it's money for children, between spouses, or even a company travel allowance. These are all about how money comes in and is distributed.
We also looked at bigger picture economic terms like an economic downturn, when things slow down, versus an economic boom, when there's growth and prosperity. Understanding these contexts helps us manage our money better.
And then we learned to allocate funds, which means deciding precisely where your money will go. This gives you so much power over your finances. We also dissected expenditures, all those things you spend money on, categorizing them into fixed costs, which are harder to change, and variable costs, which you have more control over.
And don't forget those great phrases for everyday use. We talked about things that skyrocket, meaning they increase rapidly, like prices. We also discussed when spending gets out of control, excessive and unmanaged.
And of course, our confident phrase, "You've come to the right place," which we hope you felt was true for all the budgeting wisdom and language tips we shared today.
Beyond the vocabulary, we also laid out a practical roadmap for family budgeting. It begins with identifying your cash flow, knowing exactly what's coming in and going out. Then it's crucial to review your past expenditures to see where your money has actually gone.
And armed with that information, you can differentiate between your fixed and variable costs, allowing you to focus on adjusting those variable expenses for maximum impact. Finally, we emphasize the importance of minimizing credit card usage to avoid falling into debt and to gain more control over your spending.
Remember, mastering your money, much like mastering a language, is a journey. It's about being consistent, learning from your experiences, and celebrating the small wins. Every step you take, whether it's understanding a new English word or making a smart financial decision, contributes to your overall success.
That's so true, Emily. Fluency isn't just about speaking perfectly, it's about living the language, one phrase at a time, and applying what you learn to real-life situations. And today, we hope we've given you the tools to do just that, both with your English and your family's finances.
Thank you so much for joining us on English Podcast for Listening and Speaking. We genuinely appreciate you tuning in and being part of our learning community.
We can't wait to connect with you online and hear your budgeting success stories. Until next time, keep practicing your English and keep making smart financial choices.
Bye for now.
See you next time.